So I know we were supposed to have you on the last time and actually go through a full-on interview. I think we
Yeah.
can kind of skip the introduction part of who is Glenn Lawrence because I think our viewers have really come to get to know you over the last few panels. I don't think anybody questions who you are, where you come from, or anything about you. It's very obvious you were in the military. I know you've talked about the acting stuff that you've done on the side as well. And we kind of got a little bit into the idea of why you got into the content creation and where you're going from here, so we can skip that part.
Oh, that's
But
great. It's easy. It's all like the boring stuff anyways.
right, but we're gonna just go into the crux of it, and some of these questions I feel like we may have tapped into them over the last few streams, but we're
Mhm.
gonna go ahead and like jump into them anyways and maybe build up from there and see where the conversation goes. How's that sound to you?
That sounds perfect.
Great. All right. Well, let's start with defining the red pill. I know we've kind of gone through this, but a lot of confusion is what I saw it today on another channel where Torsha was kind of going to battle with Based Oracle about what the red pill is and what they promote and what they don't promote.
Oh yeah, like he hopped on like right after I hopped off
Mhm.
her channel. Yeah. Um so what I'm gonna quote Rollo Tomasi on what he says the red pill is, okay? Because that's he's the running authority of the red pill, apparently.
The
So
Godfather.
yes. He says the red pill is basically about empirical data. It's all about absolute truth in regards to the relationship that between men and women in the intersexual dynamics, right? So how men and women tend to behave, um, and the actions that they tend to take. It's a lot of it is rooted in evolutionary psychology, evolutionary biology, um, and observations, right? So,
Mhm.
um, what it is based upon, it's like, okay, we observe this type of behavior on in men and women, and so like one of the big tenets, yes, Tom Likas did come before Rollo Tomasi, absolutely. Um, one of the big tenets that he uses or he talks about is hypergamy. And he says
Mhm.
all women are hypergamous, right? And so basically, through observation and studies, like done by Dr. David Buss and Marty Hazelton and other psychologists, Evo Psych, professionals, they have concluded that this is a general type of behavior that men and women behave in, and women tend to be hypergamous. They want to date or marry up. They don't want to
Mhm.
marry somebody that's level equal to them or beneath them. So that's an example of it. So it's just they say that they are dedicated to uh, irrefutable truth and data about intersexual dynamics.
Actually, since you mentioned that, the hypergamous concept and about women always dating up, like, do you think that that's just a behavior that they do naturally or that they do on purpose? Like,
So
I'm just going out and saying, I must find richer, I must find hotter, I must find this.
well, I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. I would
Mhm,
want women so I would want my daughter to have hypergamy. I would want her
mhm,
to go out there and get the best guy that she possibly could get with. That's,
mhm,
I would like him to be someone that she could look up to, in the sense that if she didn't look up to him, she probably didn't respect him, right?
right,
If she thought she was better than them, or if he thought or she thought that he was just average, that she might be able to do better, then that relationship probably wouldn't thrive very well. Um,
mhm,
I think hypergamy is great. Think about it this way. It's like, if, let's say, you're out there, this is back in like our, ancestral Neanderthal days, you know, you want the mate that has can provide you the most resources that could protect you, right? Especially if you're pregnant, because you're carrying the baby. So
Mhm.
you want somebody that could fulfill, not just for you, but provide a safety and security for your children, right? You didn't
Mhm.
want to get with the mate that you didn't really believe that could provide that. You would think that would probably be a really bad mating strategy if you got with the weakling when you could have got with the guy that had the muscles and the resources.
Right. Well, and
So,
your life, like, quality of life or life expectancy even at that could be limited if
depending
you're
upon it,
with the
yeah.
weakest links.
Yeah, and so I don't look at as hypergamy as a bad thing.
Mhm.
I look at it as just what is. Now, if I'm going to say it from a biblical standpoint, there's our fleshly nature. Sorry, our innate fleshly nature. Men are lustful, women are hypergamous, right?
Mhm.
Men want to bang, all the chicks. Women want to find the highest value guy and try to settle with, right?
Mhm.
Cool. Nothing wrong with either one of them, because I think, ladies, you would want your husband to be lusting after you. I think you would want him to, to desire you that way,
Yeah,
right?
naturally.
So I think in its appropriate place, hypergamy and lust is not a bad thing. When it gets abused, when it's say you find that guy, you married him, and now you're in this committed relationship, but then you were like, I think I could get the next guy too over here. And then you leave that husband to go to the next guy, like
Oh, don't they call that monkey branching or something
yeah,
like that?
that would be monkey.
Mhm.
That's where I would say, okay, that's hypergamy practiced in a negative way. Just like I
Right.
would think the guy that's married to you ends up cheating on you with this other chick over here because he's lustful. That would say that's just lust, rampant and being exercised negatively.
Mhm.
So I don't necessarily think hypergamy in itself is a bad thing. I think our society promotes it being exercised sometimes in a bad way, and
Mhm.
that could be leading to a lot of problems in relationships as well.
So is that why sometimes they kind of, like, yell at women and say, "Well, you're hypergamous," like, it's as if it's a bad thing, 'cause
Those
I
that
feel like every time I've heard hypergamy being claimed, it's been, like, shameful, like, "Shame on me for being hypergamous." So I
yeah,
don't I guess I've always viewed it as derogatory towards a
well, because
woman.
they don't know what it means. They just
Okay.
know what they just know what the outcome looks like. That, oh, you just naturally gonna want the best guy out there. You're just gonna want the best guy you could get. It's not about, like, whether I'm good enough for you or not. You just want someone better than me. And
Mhm.
it's like that's like, they get an attitude about it, but that's not there's more to it than that.
Mhm.
There's way more to it than that. And
Do you think that the men who actually don't measure up to be what we would consider a high value man would be the ones who would be complaining and degrading women for being hypergamous because they don't level up to being the big
I think
package deal?
a lot of it, again, yeah, look at that. That's like I think that's probably part of it, of that guys that um maybe that didn't meet the bar,
Mhm.
and have been dealing with rejection for a while. Probably, are a little vocal. I also think you're probably going to get some guys, um, you're probably going to get some guys that have thought they were doing the right thing, that thought they were doing everything that they were supposed to do,
Mhm.
and still end up getting burnt or left or whatever. And they're like, wait a minute, what did I do wrong? I did everything she said. Why did she leave me? I think those kind of guys are also going to be the same ones that rage about hypergamy. But at the end of the day, they're not looking at the man in the mirror. They're immediately looking at her and trying to point out the obvious bad things that she's done,
Mhm.
right? Rather than, okay, how did you facilitate that behavior?
Mhm.
Like, that's the first place where it needs to start. Is like, how did you facilitate this behavior to have this outcome?
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily always her fault or always his fault. Sometimes it's our fault. like one thing leads to this and that leads to that, and nobody's actually communicating at the end of the day. But quite honestly, if you let a woman have her way, she's always going to have her way. And then eventually you're going to lose control of that. And then she will be gone because we actually don't want our way because we know we shouldn't have our way. And that's just, that's the one thing I know with dating men is if they don't know how to tell me no in a
Yep.
situation where I know I should be told no, then quite frankly, like I already know I can take full advantage of this situation, and you are now my little bitch.
Yeah, when a
End of
guy is
story.
like too afraid of losing you, women know, and women will be
Mhm.
like, "Oh, hold my beer, watch this." And
Yes.
it's not like, and it's not like you guys do it intentionally always. But once the guy already plays his hand, and once you realize that he needs you in this
Mhm.
relationship more than you need him, yeah, it's over. He conceded and not even realizing um that he lost.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I mean, we can sniff it out pretty quick when a man approaches you or, um, I mean, even on, like, they start qualifying themselves to you, and are very, uh agreeable to everything, you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, or they they just can't, take the reins. They don't know how to take the reins, and you have to kinda do it for them. And that as soon as that happens, like, I'm immediately turned off, and I'm like, "Well, you're only good for simp behavior, so, if you wanna be a simp, I'll treat you like a simp." But it is a total turn off. I'm not attracted to it.
Yeah, I really think it's emasculating in the sense like they literally emasculate themselves.
Well, think about it from my end too. It's like, God, like, can't like, I'm the girl. I know you should be pining for me, but you shouldn't be whining for me.
Pining? Really? Should they? I don't know. I don't know. I think women are so used to guys pining for them, and I think that's like part of the reason why some of these relationships don't work out. I mean, the relationships that I have seen, thrive tend to be the other way around, where the woman tends to try to qualify to him. Not saying like he's like this asshole and he's like, I'm gonna make her like prove herself, but like
Right.
like the women that like go out of their way to make sure that like the guy that they're trying to date or whatever knows that like she's serious about him. I think
Mhm.
those are the ones that tend to do the best because again, it's the other way around in the sense of women. You could replace the guy like this, you know. Even the Jason Momoa won't have as many options as you do,
Mhm.
in a suitor. So I think in that sense, it's a lot harder for guys. That's why it's a lot harder for guys to deal with the breakup as well. But for women, you guys are able to, so I think you're just that natural state of being used to being um, you know, um like chased in the sense or like exalted or put on the pedestal. I think that tends to be so common and normal for you guys that you're like, what's different how is he
Yes.
different from the next person?
There you go. You got it right there. What's so different? What makes you different from anybody else? And that's what I guess makes it more attractive when a man is not like falling over to talk to you. But at the same time, there's a level of like mutual respect, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like leaving somebody on red, not being responsive, canceling a date last minute, not showing up, being late.
Yeah.
Glenn. Is that what you're doing to me? You just putting me back in my place, back showing up late?
Hey, you know what? I'm just letting you know.
Right.
See, I'm just letting you know that, like you're gonna wait 15. No, I'm kidding. No, but I think that like for think about the relationships that you've had that like that you really like, that were very good, that started off great, that you really enjoyed, you probably made sure that you let that guy know that, like, hey, you're here, you're serious about this.
Mhm.
And the guys that, like, you really weren't paying that much attention to, or that they do that much work for to get their attention, they probably the ones that just got, you know, those are the ones that weren't significant.
Yeah, so I make it very clear. If I want somebody, I let them know pretty quick. Like I'm not just I don't I see and I think I'm different from a lot of women because I'm not going to
So does
chase, but
every woman say that? Every woman
not
say, I think
well,
I'm different from a lot of women.
I've had a lot of people confirm this verbally by either like knowing my history or talking to me. But okay, let's pretend I'm like everybody else. But for me, like I'm I just don't like to waste time. I don't like to waste my time or theirs, so I don't play the back and forth game. I don't play the who needs to, leave who on red to have control or like if a
Oh God,
man
yeah.
that's games to me and I'm not a game player. Like I don't like playing games. But to me it's more of the idea of getting into I'm going to let you know I'm interested and I'm going to let you take over from there. You have full information, you know what my intentions are, and if you want to be the man and take the lead from there, I will let you 110%. But if you don't, then I'm going to take the hint and, hightail it out of town because I'm so embarrassed. but but the ones that come in and are interested, I try to be as kind as I can, letting them know that I'm not interested, but it's hard to beat around the bush and, those are the ones I usually say, "Look,
Hopefully
I
you don't
just."
have a brush. I mean, so there's
Oh
nothing
god,
here. Okay,
it's
had
not
to,
the
had to.
70s, it's not the 70s, but, being able to just like, how do you let them down easy? Can you even?
No, I mean rejection's rejection. Like,
Mhm.
it never feels good. It's not you, it's me.
It's me.
Like, no,
I
really,
like
it's you. It's you. The reason why I
Mhm.
don't like you is because of you.
Yeah. I mean, most of the time I like to just say, "Hey, I appreciate that you're interested in me, but I'm just it's not mutual right now." You know.
Yeah.
So.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay. I
Mhm.
think people are entitled to have their opinion and their preference.
Well,
Sure.
no, the manosphere would grill me because how dare I tell a man no? Like, what do I think
See, I
I'm too
think
good? You're hypergamous.
See, like, it's like, those guys just don't know. I'm like, I think hypergamy is worse for women than it is for guys. I think women having hypergamy actually can be, very detrimental to them, if not like, uh, like reined in, because
Mhm.
it's almost like this, oh, like there's probably always someone better out there. Right. And it's like, so you never want to commit. And then now you are later on in life and you never settle down and committed. And you're like, well, wait a minute. I really wish I, would have just picked one, and now it's like
Mhm.
I'm, like, I think that's sad. I think that's sad.
It is. P. Fletch, there's nothing subtle about the way I say it. It's usually pretty clear of, "Hey, I'm into you. I would, very much like to go further with you, either date you or, whatever." But I'm very, very clear. I made a mixed tape for LFA. I can't get any more clear than that. So,
I mean,
anyways.
there you go. If you making mixtapes, like, and if for those that don't know, like mixtapes in our day, that was like serious.
That was some
You put
serious
all the
stuff.
songs. Oh man, that's like, there's nothing more serious than that. Like, you don't get
Mhm.
nothing more real than that.
No. But it is on my channel, you can go check out my mixtape for LFA. I don't know how much more direct I can be to that man. So, y'all go and figure that one out from there. That's how direct I can be. A whole ass video to the world, folks, to the world. All right, Glenn.
That
So
is
what
that is rare for a woman.
Oh, it's legit. I'd play it, but there's music on there that would copyright claim it, This it
Mm.
would copyright claim on here, but yeah, it's pretty comical. It's one of my little skits. But all right. So what would you say the mission statement is of the red pill? What is the purpose, the intentions behind it? What is it doing for men or women?
See, this is where I have a problem with it. I think that although they say that they're not about best practices, advice, or solutions,
Mhm.
and that they're just about empirical truth or irrefutable truth, that would probably be like the mission statement. They say that they're about just the truth about intersexual
Mhm.
dynamics, and that they're not about best practices, advice, or solutions. It seems to be that the only solutions and advice and best practices that they give tend to be to help guys get in bed with women, but that's about it.
Mhm.
So, you know, how they benefit men, they benefit men. I mean, they point out the flaws that a lot of guys have that they're not aware of, in the sense of um, having an old worldview or an old outlook on how men and women are to interact. They have like this Disney fairy tale, I'm gonna go find me the princess and I'm gonna rescue her from the dragon and we're gonna live happily ever after, not realizing, that what you rescued might have been the dragon itself, and she just
Ooh,
lived in
yeah.
the universe. I think they reveal that women are not always sugar and spice and everything nice. I think that they also reveal like how that your behavior can really be the catalyst that causes your relationship to end, in the sense of pedestalizing her, um constantly placating to her needs. That could be the cause of your relationship to foil and not be successful.
Mhm.
um I think that, again, I think the a lot of the obvious stuff they tell guys, like level up, get in shape. I mean, you would think like this is common sense, right? And it is pretty much kind of common sense, but the fact is that we live in a time and day where common sense is needed because there's not a whole lot of it running around.
No, it's
Like,
not.
you would never think that common sense would be monetizable, but today it is.
Well, then you have to also hope and pray that the person receiving the information, if they don't already have common sense, then their applicability of the common sense you're prescribing to them is applied correctly. Because there's been so many mismatched pieces out there and so many misunderstandings, or they're taking it and running with it on their interpretation. Oh, all women are hypergamous, therefore, you know, like screw women. I mean, you have the black pillars kind of hone in on that idea.
Yeah, so
you know
like I was about to point that out because the black pillars take the same information that the red pill provides, right? And then they just go with it like, as in, you know what, screw it, all women are evil. They all want to just take, um, they just want to take all my resources and screw me over, and she's gonna divorce me and blah 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 blah. That's the
Mhm.
black pill. Red pill is like, don't get married, don't settle down. No, these women are gonna divorce you, blah blah blah. Learn game, and you know what? Spin plates and bang, several women or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like they take the same information and they run opposite directions from it. I
Right.
would look at it and be like, okay, how about you take the information, you see that if you level up and you put in the work for yourself to better off yourself, um nothing is foolproof, nothing is removes zero risk. But
Right.
what it does is if you level up and you are aware of these things, that you could help mitigate a lot of the problems you may face in a relationship. um
S-
I think that
So, oh, go ahead.
it can be utilized for good. I think what it's being pushed for, it's like it's good for the individual, not good for society or the culture, or for families or for the future. I think that's where the problem lies.
So, even if the red pill didn't exist, do you think a man could still be a man without that information being fed to him on a screen?
Um, so like I would say, you're saying if the red pill didn't exist, would men still be a man? Is feminism existing at the same time? Because I would say red pill
Well,
is
okay, well, what did men do in the 1800s, like, without this information being fed into? Now, feminism was not a thing back then, so
so
let's
okay.
presume that.
If feminism wasn't around, I think men would be men. In the sense like there wouldn't be any social conditioning or programming to a degree to feminize men at that point. Like in the 1800s, there was really not that going on. There wasn't no shaming tactics or like I get it, Master Yoda. I'm just saying that you guys check out a women completely and just think that there's no point in getting in relationships with women. And I think that's a negative worldview. I think that's a sad worldview if you think that there can't be any possibility where a relationship between men and women, or you and a woman, can be successful. I just think that it takes time and effort and vetting properly and making sure that you got what you need to secure a relationship, you know?
Mhm.
Um,
Well, and Master Yoda has come on here several times, and he has full respect for women. I will give him that 110%. This man has always been thoughtful in conversation. He's always been respectful, and I don't think he hates women like most of the black pillars do. And Master Yoda is in the black pill community. What I think in his end, because I feel like the black pill can go one way or the other, is they don't think they're good enough to find a woman anyways, or like handsome enough, tall enough, muscular enough. So it's more of they're putting the shame on
or like
themselves.
the looks maxing.
Yes. Yeah, they're more of like the doomer style where it's like, "Well, I'm ugly, so what's it matter anyways? I might as well just get prostitutes and call that a day." And it's easier than trying to, go out there in the dating market and make myself more miserable when I have a perfectly good female. And in his country it is legal. So he can just go find a
In our
well,
country, it is too. Just go to
in certain
Vegas.
places, yeah. But, so he can just go down and see Susie Q once a week, pay her what she needs, and go home, you know? And
I've heard
and
a
that
decent argument about that. It's like it's cheaper to do that than it is to
tend
get a
to
relationship.
yeah, no, and I agree with that. Like,
Hey,
I agree.
I would say that, I would say it's not, according to the word, a good option, for a guy to take.
Mhm.
But so with that being said, I'll say, but if that works for you and you're not religious, then I'll say, okay, do your thing. You know, I have a problem when like people of faith try to convince non-people of faith that they're living wrong. Although it may
Mhm.
be true, but it's like you can't convince somebody that doesn't share your worldview that they're living wrong. You have to try to appeal to them, and win them over, not shame them. That's the problem with the Christ pill. Like the Christ pill is like, trying to shame those red pill guys, back into certain,
Well, don't we need some level of shame for people to recognize their
what is
wrongdoings per se? And I only say it this way is, um a mild form of shaming goes a long way in a positive direction by way of
where
saying,
where does shame work though? Who does shame work the best with? Like, is it
uh,
something that you don't know, or like, would you be like, does shame actually work more when somebody that you look up to and they
uh,
kind of come at you?
so here's how I look at it. Now I'm a big fan of like being a positive role, positive influence, giving positive feedback. But at the same time, I believe that if there is something negative that needs to be mixed in with that, then you have constructive criticism. Constructive criticism is positive, negative, positive, right? So if if on this interview I thought you did terrible in some pieces or something, right? Let's just use this for an
Mhm.
example. I'd say, Glenn, I really appreciate you coming on, and you bring such good value to this show XYZ. But you stumble over your words a lot when you're talking. I love how you went off
That's
screen for
it.
that
I'm
one.
out. I'm out. I can't handle the criticism. I
That's
can't look at you and take it at the same time.
That was such perfect timing. But if I said like you stumble over your words a lot, you're very slow at responding, or something. But then I'd follow it up with like, but it is a real pleasure having you on, and you your personality is very fun, or something like that. So positive, negative, positive. So it has that positive reinforcement behind it to make sure that you are still human, and I recognize that for
So you
you.
do the HR like firing tactic, like, you know
Oh
what, buddy?
God.
We thought you were great. You were so good at this,
No,
but
no, I've
you
had
had a
to
problem
I've
with
had
this
to be the
area.
person that had to my boss is, Nasty Nathaniel, you always say this every time, "You're a fascinating woman." I'm wondering if you know any other words or phrases, but thank you, Nasty Nathaniel. We always appreciate when you stop by. I wanna go back to this comment because I do wanna talk on this for a minute. But, no, like, I was put in charge of canning a couple people once, and it was within like a couple months of each other too, and I hated it. I hated every second of it because I don't like delivering bad news. I don't like being the mean person, or I don't like confrontation, and my bosses made me do it, and I was so like, are you sure I have to do this? Like, you're making me like, I don't want to do it. But it came down to me basically saying, I just don't think you're a great fit for this position. I do recognize you have a lot of wonderful skills that are applicable in an office, or doing this or doing that. However, with this specific role, it's not a good fit. End of story. And you can't really go positive, negative, positive on that, because you're not providing constructive criticism at that moment. You're making a statement. You're telling them, you don't belong here and I need to get rid of you. So you
Yeah, you
have
just tell them to say, hey, you gotta go. Just
yeah, you have to be firm, because if not, number one, you don't want to build them with high hopes, and number two, you don't want a lot of questions. So you think
I don't like a lot of questions, period.
well, I've got a whole set of them for you. You call them. But, I think when you're canning somebody, it's a much different, situation, and and then they come back with questions, of course. "Well, what did I do wrong?" And you don't wanna have to answer that.
See, I
And it's
think that's where construction criticism comes in.
that's where
If
that peop
when
that's where
when
that
I
piece comes
ask
in.
you, if I say, hey, how did I do?
Mhm.
Now that's construction criticism. Now I think if you just came out of the blue and just like, hey, Glenn, I think you did shit. I care, but I think you did great here. I'm like, well, thank you, critical person. I didn't ask your opinion,
You
but you
do.
know, like I
And
think
and I will
that's
say
the
that too.
difference between
It
constructive criticism is when it's sought out.
It has to be requested. If you're just giving it out there, then it's unsolicited advice. And you have to be wary of
Unsolicited
that.
criticism. It's not even advice, it's
Yeah,
criticism.
well, yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you. And I think that that's where a lot of issues come in for people, is when and I have to tally myself back sometimes, because when I see something happening and somebody complaining, I usually go into mom mode, unfortunately, and I go into, okay, well, look, let's take a look at what's going on, because I can't just sit there and listen to somebody moan about a problem, right? It just doesn't work for me. Let's find a solution. And I'll go into like a constructive criticism, especially if I know they're wrong in that instance. And I'll go into, all right, well, let's look at the situation, XYZ. This is what you keep doing when you're not reading the room, and you're putting yourself in these positions, and blah 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 blah. So I think that in those instances, if somebody comes to you complaining, now you have every right to throw in a constructive criticism and feedback
Yeah.
on that, because Yes, I recognize some people just want to vent, but I'm not the person to sit there and listen. And anybody who knows me knows that fact. Like, I'm not just going to sit there and just listen to you whine and coddle you and say, "Oh, come here, little baby." Like, no, I'm going to go into, okay, mom mode. Let's solve something here,
Well, you know
because
what? That does present like something that I found out that guys need to hear. Guys, when your women come to you complaining, they
that's when
don't
you need
always
to,
want you to fix things.
no.
No. You gotta stop them. Like Sarah, here, let's do an example. Go ahead. Start complaining to me about something.
Oh my God, I was at work today and this girl came over
Hold
and
up,
she
hold up, hold
looked
up.
at
Hey
me.
babe. Hey babe. Quick question. Do you want me to fix this or do you want me to feel this with you?
I just want to tell you about it. I'm upset. And
Okay,
I just
okay, cool,
want
cool. Go on.
to. Yeah. And then she would continue on whining.
Yes. And it's like that's literally I have learned that's like the one of the easiest and best ways to stop a lot of bullshit. Or that kind of helps you know how you to approach this. And
Hmm.
also if she wants you to just feel it and you're already dealing with a bunch of stuff, let's say you're in the middle of work and yet you're up to your neck in it, you go, look, sweetheart, I right now, not the time for me to feel it. Okay.
Hmm.
Hold that. I will feel that with you later and we can deal with it then. But if it's something I can fix, I'll try to fix it. But if you want me to just feel it with you, I can't. I gotta feel all this other bullshit right now.
Hmm.
And I think that's a good way to approach it because one, guys are just so used to wanting to fix women's problems. Why? Because they want to make sure that the legs stay open for them. I
Hmm.
can fix her problems and she won't be mad or won't be sad, and I could get some nookie later.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, absolutely. But I will caveat that to say, don't be too curt with her in the Oh, hold on just a second. I've got a little one. Good. You're good at monologuing. Whew.
Oh
I
yeah, I can
had
do that.
my youngest woke up and all I heard was, "Mom,
Where's
Mom."
my sandwich?
Yeah. Sandwiches for everybody. Yeah, he just like randomly woke up. So that's kind of rare. Yeah. So, anyways, what I was saying earlier was I will caveat that to say that try not to be too curt with the lady when she is coming to you, and you have to be very receptive and kind of, we as women, because we typically do the coddling, we do the hugging, we do the gentles, but when we come to you, that's what we want from you. We want to be loved, we want to be held, we want to just release and let it go. And that, you being our man for that, like that's the golden moment for you to shine, and you give her a big
Mhm.
hug, you hold her and say, "Oh baby, what's going on? Like, do we, is this a problem we need to solve, or do you just need to let it out?"
Yep.
"I don't know." "Okay, baby, just, come here," and it sorts itself out if you're receptive and you're gentle with her. And I think, being firm with making decisions is one thing, but when your lady's coming to you and she's got tears in her eyes or she's had a bad day, she just needs you to be a little gentle with her.
Oh
We
yeah, a
we
little bit of tenderness.
Yeah, we are little princesses and we do cry and we do
Whoa, whoa,
become
whoa,
big
whoa.
babies.
Princess, I wouldn't say all that,
We
but
become big babies and we just need to
that's
be
for
loved
sure.
on. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, but I wanted to talk about this. Christianity Unplugged has a good point. In the 1800s, the last good men died or lost fighting for Christendom. And you guys can read the rest. But ideally, that was kind of a thought process I had too about when you were saying, "Well, is feminism still involved? Did men in the 1800s need red pill talking points?" Uh, but my question to you is also like, these men in the 1800s still had church every Sunday. They still prayed at dinner. They
Yes.
still prayed before bed with their children and their family. They still had Christianity in the home, in the
Mhm.
school, like the one school, that was 10 miles away. Um, and it was a staple. of America, like,
Mhm.
having Christianity and things like that, and we all say, like, "Oh, Western civilization's gone to shit." Well, what is the one thing we're missing here?
Yeah, you remove one. It started with removing God from the schools. That was pretty sad.
Mhm.
Remember we used to say the national anthem? We don't even say that
Yeah.
anymore. One nation under God. That's what was so offensive that
Well,
we removed it from.
I do know that, like, my kids still say the Pledge of Allegiance in, or at least in elementary. I don't think they do it for middle school, I don't know, but I know in elementary school, I know for a fact because 'cause I've been there and I've seen it happen, but, that's one piece, but then, I feel like once we, like, removed God from the
Mhm.
home and everywhere else, like, we removed all of the values and principles and moral standards that came with it, and now it's like, "Well, what's it matter?"
Yeah, I mean, so Nick is a great person to talk to about this. So he has written one book so far, and he has another book getting ready to be edited um that talks about feminism. And I would say Rachel Wilson, Andrew Wilson's wife, also has written a book, I think, called The Cult Feminism. And it goes back in history and shows you the lineage of feminism. Um, Feminism started from the Methodist Church, basically. I mean, that's where it started from in 1840, whatever, in Seneca Falls. The suffragettes came from, the women that were at that first feminist rally. The speakers were female pastors from some of them were from the Methodist Church as well as some other ones. Nick could clarify better for me. Um, but that's where it came from. So feminism's roots with Christianity has always kind of been there, but the
Mhm,
church has always kind of denied it, that they were um, affiliated somehow, right?
mhm.
So what we have seen is that feminism is first really infiltrated the church, and then from the church, it's disseminated into society and culture, and it has
I would
been
have
like
never known
under
that it started in the church.
yeah, that's where it started. I mean, like the first meeting was held at in a Methodist church basement. That's exactly where the first Seneca Falls,
It's from all the little old ladies sitting there crocheting stuff for, their little church
you
group.
think they were having their little female Bible study, but really they were planning to take over
They
the
were
world,
planning.
people.
If men only knew what we could do.
Yeah, and the sad thing is that I think that at some point in time, for the collective of women to try to gather together to combat whatever they felt that what was injustice, there had to be some level of injustice that was true
Mhm,
enough to build that response, like to get these people to support them.
mhm.
Because you know if only like a 12 or a handful of women were being mistreated ever in history, you're not going to have a feminist movement. Why would women risk losing everything that they had that was good, to combat, like, fight for these 12, right? So I think what happened is that it grew and it grew, and more women end up having the same similar, experiences, that
Right.
men male behavior was unchecked, and there was women were being mistreated to a degree. I don't know how far that degree is, but I would say that to get anybody to garner support, there had to be enough instances where this level of mistreatment was prevalent enough to where it could get that much support behind people.
Mhm.
So I think there was genuine, um there was issues that needed to be addressed that weren't addressed, and that movement probably led to them addressing it. I don't think any wave of feminism was good, personally. I think all feminism is bad. It's the same thing. It is the feminist, what was it? The one of their tenets is that their desire is to destroy the nuclear family, right?
Really?
Well,
Where's that
yeah.
at?
I believe it was her name? What's her name? Nick, go ahead. Throw it in the chat. Go on. I know you're gonna know it. You're in here. Throw it in the chat. One of the leading or the most forerunning like vocal mouthpieces for the feminist movement stated that their desire was, their utopia was to destroy patriarchy and to destroy the nuclear family.
See, why would you want to destroy the nuclear family? I mean, that is the foundation of American society, is the nuclear family. I mean, or any society, quite honestly. Like, we're all, mom, dad,
There you
kids.
go.
Mom, dad, kids.
Elizabeth Cady Stratton.
Stanton?
Stanton.
Stanton.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's over the top. Like, we shouldn't have to destroy in order to build, right? We like build your foundation on something else. Like, and that's the problem I have with a lot of more modern day feminism. I think, I mean, obviously there's some degree of feminism that every female falls into. For my ability to sit here and ask you questions and have a podcast and be on a screen and have a voice and go to school and be divorced and have my own house and have my own credit line and have a bank account and be able to drive my own car and all of these things, like, I am thankful that I'm allowed to do. Now, do I want the headache that comes with it? Probably not. It'd be much easier, inevitably, if a man did have to deal with all of this stuff. But in any event, I think, feminism is kind of a common factor for a lot of people. But
I
my
think
problem, like, my true problem with feminism is stepping on men in order to get women ahead. And I don't think that that should be the case. I think we should bring ourselves up on our own.
don't lower the standards. Yeah.
But, well, I think on men, let me put it that way, straight up on men, talking like every male behavior is now toxic masculinity. Everything about being a man is now toxic. Everything about having an opinion if you're a man is now toxic. Everything man, toxic, bad, man, bad man. And I think that that's where they failed to win. Like, it's a short-term gain, but a huge long-term loss, because now nobody can respect the concept of feminism except for the crazy ones that are just over the top extremists and, man haters. And usually they're women that don't want to participate in, they don't even want men to begin with. We're talking like they're either old cat lady.
Go out and say that they should, if they're pregnant and they have a boy, that they should go out and have an abortion.
No.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have an abortion at all to begin with. That's
I agree with you 100%. And see, it's like, I think certain movements start and they mean well. And some of the positive changes that you mentioned, like, be able to drive a car, have your own bank, have some sort of independence, right? Be able to provide for yourself if need be, right? Yeah, that seems normal, right? You would think, like, why wouldn't do? Like, when was that? Because none of us have ever lived in a time where women were, unable to drive a vehicle in our country, or women couldn't. None of us ever lived in a time where women couldn't work or vote. So we don't understand,
Yeah, we don't know what the difference was at
Yeah.
all. We can't compare it to it unless you go into like a maybe a Mormon community or an Amish community. That's the only place you'll probably see that concept being displayed on hand. And I live close enough to the Amish communities. I've seen them. Like, I don't interact, but like, I've seen that concept in play, and that those are probably the only communities in Western civilization where that is a hard, like, this is how it is and this is how it's going to be. And that's where you're.
I don't think that. So based off just going off the Bible alone, there are gender duties. I wouldn't say roles, because if I say roles, Nick is going to come up here and start yelling at me saying that no such thing as gender roles, it's gender duties. But like gender duties, like
Mhm.
there's God designed us both to be equal in value. You know,
Mhm.
men are not more valuable than women. Women are not more valuable than men. They're equal in value, but different in function and station for a reason, right? By design. And I think we don't live in a time that we could actually accept that truth. I think what we want is we want everybody to be equal. And when we see, as you mentioned, like, when the church was, people were back in the church and we didn't remove God from this, our culture as much as we have, things were better. And I think that's what it would take. But again, you would have to get the church on board with that. See, the biggest problem with most of the evangelical churches today, that they're either egalitarian or complementarian, which both are not the original teachings on men and women, and how they should interact with one another. A biblical patriarchy is what was been taught for over 2,000 years until 1980. That's when egalitarianism was accepted into the church. So up to 1980, what was being taught for the most part was biblical patriarchy.
Mhm.
That the man is the head of the household. He was the authority, right? He had the not only did he have the authority to have the of the family, but he also had the responsibility of the family. So if something happened to the family, or the family, for whatever reason ended, as if they got a divorce, it was on him. Now what we have done is we have removed the authority from men to lead the family, but we have not removed them from being blamed when things are wrong. And see, that's the problem. They still got the
Yeah.
responsibility, but they do not have the authority
Yeah.
to navigate this relationship or navigate this family the way that it ought to be. And you bring in concepts and models like servant leadership, where they teach guys like, hey, you got to serve your wife. You lead by serving. And I'm sorry, nobody follows a servant, you
Right.
know. So that's an oxymoron. I think they have adopted things that they think are Christianese that actually have been more detrimental to families and overall than they are would be good. I think the harsh reality is like, hey, ladies, the Bible says, for you to, submit to your husbands and everything. Just as well as it says, husbands, you got to love your wives, like Christ loved the church. There's no conditions there. There's no, hey,
Mhm.
you submit when he does the things that you like him to do, or when he makes you feel good, or when you agree with him. No, it's in everything. Just,
But
it's just as long as he's not trying to cause you to sin and tell you to do something against God.
here's what I'm gonna say to that is, are these men acting like Christian men simultaneously?
Well, they should be, right? I'm saying if they're Christian, if that's
If
what
they
I'm saying.
are, so and I'll
But,
say that, if they
but again,
are doing what a man should be doing, a husband should be doing, they're loving their wife, they're being honorable and trustworthy and loyal, and being the protectors, the providers, and
mhm.
they're doing their job, then yeah, she has no reason not to love him and
But
and
see,
be
well,
submissive to
nowhere
him.
does it say love him. It says
No, well,
for her
but
to
even
submit.
like being submissive, right? She has no reason not to be that way, because if he's doing his job, she can do hers. But she can't do both.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not going to imply things in there that well, yes, I know it does, Nick. It says it in Titus, but not in that passage. Come on, give me a break here. Don't break my balls. Um, but what I'm getting at is that, and just if you're basing it off of that passage, there was no caveat there. And what I think Paul is, what he's writing there is like, look, ladies, you have your requirements. God has an expectation for you and a
Mhm,
behavior for you outside of your husband. It has nothing to do with him. It has to do with you and his
mhm.
expectations of you. Just as God has expectations for men, the husband, that are outside of the wife. Hey, regardless if your wife is being disrespectful to you, I still expect you to love her like Christ loved the church.
Mhm.
Like they're almost unrealistic, like achievable expectations, because they're like, there's no way in hell this is cussing me out and she's throwing shit. There's no
But
way
if
I can
every
come up
day
to
you're
her.
trying, if every day you're
Yes,
trying, then every day you'll eventually get there, and Jesus
yeah.
wasn't perfect, nobody was perfect, you know,
Well,
we
actually,
all move
Jesus,
along.
Jesus was perfect. That
He
was,
was perfect, but he
I
but
mean,
he but he still had to go through a lot of, like, trials and tribulations to ensure he was, you know
no,
what
he
I
was
mean?
perfect from the moment he stepped on this face of this
He
earth.
okay,
Now he
I'm not
endured, he
denying that.
was tested
Yes,
like we
thank you.
were.
Like,
He went through the
he had
test.
to go
Yeah.
through the ringer, so as a man dealing with a woman throwing shit at the walls and getting mad and upset, that's your 40 days and 40 nights, folks, okay? And you have
Or
to
that's
come
just a
out.
bad decision, bad mating decision. I mean, the Bible says, hey, you know what? It's better to live in the corner of a house than with a nagging wife or corner of a
Oh
roof.
my god. Well, here's how I'm gonna say it. If he's doing his job as a man and she's doing her job as a woman, then it should be perfectly fine. But
Yeah.
when one person is not doing their role and the other person has to pick up both roles, that's when it's not gonna work. And
See, I
I'm
think
not
that's
saying it's
exactly wrong.
always one is wrong. I'm not always saying the other is wrong. Like it's gonna be him or her, and there's his, there's hers, and
Or
then
it's
then
going to
there's
be
another.
both.
Or it could be both. Like they both could just be total morons, right? Trying to have a relationship and it just doesn't work. Um, but I think that if he is at bare minimum like a reasonable man, and he is providing for the household, and he's a loyal husband, and he's a good husband, and he cares, and he does the things to make sure that he is competent and she doesn't have to worry about manly things, then she has every reason to be submissive.
Oh, I
But
agree with you.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
But
there's no
that's
excuse.
that. I would say that too. But here's the thing, and this is what the church tends to do. It tells guys, if you're just a good servant leader, you know what, you must not be a good servant leader. You must not be serving your wife enough. That's why she's not giving you any,
It's
like, and
and
so
that's
it's not like
it's
there's
not.
no full, yeah, it's not that at all. It can be just this person is just doesn't want to do it, or this person no longer feels this way about you. And I think that is part of like the problem when we try to give any type of like solutions, like, hey, if you do these things, then your wife is gonna jump your bones, you
Mhm.
know, and not when you, because what we just mentioned are all great qualities and lists of things that we want every guy to have, right? But there has been guys that have done all those things and their wife still didn't want, still cheated on them or still left them, because we're human, we're still
Mhm.
flawed. And that's where this is where like the rejection of human nature comes in, because it's like we wanted it to be, we assume that everybody's moral, so if you just do all the right thing, no one will be take advantage of you, no one would do anything wrong to you. Like, have you ever done the right thing and then somebody still burns you? You're like, wait a minute.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
you're like,
yeah.
I did everything right. Why did I get why did this happen?
But I can't put that weight on anybody else but myself in that moment, because it's like, okay, well, I showed up and I did what I was supposed to do. Like, they have made their decision, and that's on them.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing I can do about it, and I'm not gonna do anything about it. Just I always elaborate to my children. I always say, "The only thing you can control in this world are the words that come out of your mouth and the things that you
Yep.
do. You can't control other people. You can't control how they feel. You can't control how they react. You can't control if they're gonna get upset at the things you say or things you do. You can't control them. So
Yeah, and I
the
think
only
that's part of the problem with a lot of guys when it comes to leadership, is that they have a problem with understanding control and controlling.
Mhm.
There's a difference between having dominion and dominating,
Mhm.
right? The Bible tells us that, we are to have dominion over the earth, right? That means, we run the earth, but we're not dominating the earth. We're not like, doing evil things in that sense. Controlling that's bad. I think all guys that are controlling have a problem. Now you're like, well, Glenn, you said men are supposed to have control. Yes, but they're not supposed to be controlling. What are you supposed
Hmm.
to have control over? Your life as an individual, what you will and will not accept in your life,
Right.
what type of people you do and you do not want, right? So let's say you and I were together, and I told you like, hey, from the jump, like I really don't want any promiscuous, pictures up on social media of my significant other. It just, to me, that's disrespectful to the relationship. It's disrespectful to me. I'm the only person that's supposed to see you in this fashion. And the day you post something like that is the day that you're telling me that you no longer want to be in a relationship, right? And
Right.
that's not me trying to control you. I'm not controlling you and telling you what you can and cannot wear. You can wear whatever you want to wear. But if you go ahead and wear something like that, then you and I are no longer a thing. And that's a decision that you got to make.
Well, and that's just establishing your boundaries up front. And I think everybody has their right to the boundaries and then things that they will and will not accept. What I don't believe in is 6 months into a relationship, you suddenly change your mind about that cute little cocktail dress, and you're like, no, you can't wear that now because you're mine." Like, hold up. I literally wore this 4 times with you already in the last 6 months. Like, why the sudden change?
I think that's where their level of insecurity is showing out, and yeah, that's a problem. Chore play. Who's talking about chore play? Oh my gosh, you guys know I have the best video on chore play.
What is chore play?
Oh, when the couple goes to counseling, and the wife is like, if you just helped out around the house a little bit more, I'll give you some nookie, or we'll have some,
Okay. It's not about the chores. And I can tell you 100% it's not about the chores because
Well, let's hear about this.
that was the one thing my ex-husband was very good at was like helping out, or not even helping out. He just did it. He liked to do it. It was an OCD thing. Like he liked to vacuum every day and he loved to do dishes. He loved to run laundry. And I was like, okay, if that's your thing, that's what you like to do, I'm gonna let you do it. It always came out wrong, but whatever. I'm gonna let you do it as to my best ability. Um, but I don't think that it's fair to say that, well, if you just did the dishes, I'd probably give you some ass at the end of the night. Here's what's really going on. And I'll give you a scenario. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Glenn, you and I were in a fake marriage. Okay.
Yep, our fake
We have,
marriage.
we have 2 young children, ages 3 and 1.
All right.
You are the sole provider of the family household. I I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm a housemaker, your homemaker, all of those things, okay?
Yeah.
You've been gone for 9 hours today. And again, I have a 3 and a 1-year-old at home. My
Mm-hmm.
level of sanity, like that pressure gauge is like about to blow, and you come home and the house is probably a disaster at this point, especially with a 3 and a 1-year-old. I can imagine that actually being tough because
I mean, there's cereal all over the floor, a little dried cereal, and the smashed
yeah,
bananas everywhere.
you get
Got it.
it. You have kids. You
Yeah.
know exactly what I'm talking about. You come home, the house is a disaster. Dinner's like halfway prepared. I don't even know what's going on the stove anymore. Baby's crying, stuff's going on, and a man, a husband, a father would come in the door and just without issue, just come in and
And take over
just
and
start
assist.
situating and
Mm-hmm.
get the situation back to order. Okay. Without being asked, without being prompted. I understand he's had a long day at work, but if anybody knows what it feels like to be like stuck at home with 2 things that depend on you all day, and you're needed and needed and needed and needed, right? At least if you're at work, you can go take a shit by yourself in peace and scroll on Facebook and nobody's asking for you, right? Nobody's
Mm-hmm.
like, people might come into your office crying and whining, but they're not actually crying and unable to be fixed. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And they can communicate to you instead of like, 1-year-old just blah, 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 and you have no idea what they want. And it can be, I will say from a mother's point of view, it can be very disastrous mentally because you're trying to you're trying to coddle and trying to make sure things are kept up and trying to be an adult at the same time while trying to like play with a 3-year-old and be in toddler world at the same it's a lot of like mental change up throughout a day, okay?
Mhm.
And you don't get a break. There's no lunch break. There's no like, "Oh, I'm gonna clock out and just head out for 30 minutes and go find my zen." There's none of that. And when the baby's napping, you're probably napping on the floor with them because you passed out at that point.
Although
Um,
you meant to fold the laundry, but you fell into sleep in the laundry.
exactly. The laundry is like halfway pulled out of the dryer. It's sitting halfway between the dryer and the basket, and you have no idea what's going on or which laundry basket is dirty, what's clean, what's dirt. Like it's all over the place. The mental load
Mhm.
is heavy. And if a husband comes home and just starts doing, not complaining, not pointing out the fact that there's Cheerios on the floor, not pointing out the fact that dinner is only halfway made at that moment, and he just comes in and takes the lead and gets done. Yes, I know he's had a long, hard day at work. He had to make decisions. He had to do things, but he did them with adults who are capable of being told, listen, I need 20 minutes to myself, leave my office room now, or I can't take any more calls right this second, or I just need, to look into this email first. Like, there's a very big difference between dealing with children all day and dealing with adults at an office. And I think if he just came in and just took over and just gave her that release, the ability to be relieved of those duties for 10 minutes. Take over. Just grab the kids. Tell her, babe, go get a shower. Go lay down. Go do something. Go scroll on your phone. I don't care. Go do something for you right now. Um, you'd probably have a lot less of this chore play stuff that you're talking about because it's not about the chores. It's not about
Well, I think what we are talking about are two different things here.
okay.
Now,
Well, let me land the plane. She's emotionally and mentally fried all day. Okay. And she has all of this stuff going on. Then by 8 o'clock, the kids are put in bed, and you haven't helped her really do anything. You haven't assisted with this or done that. And she doesn't feel held up. She doesn't feel supported, physically, mentally, emotionally. Do you think she's going to be into you? Do you
oh
think
no,
she's
I mean
no,
not in the scenario that you're pointing out, because I would agree
no.
with you. See,
Yeah.
okay, my thing is like, okay, guys, like you you may not be at fault. You did your job. You may not be the reason why the dishes are not done, or like why dinner is not done and everything's a mess. That's irrelevant. You still have the responsibility to act.
Mhm.
And that's your family. Again, the Bible also points out that wives are the what? Sorry, ladies, but the Bible says it, not Glenn. I didn't write this. Not I didn't make this up. But
Mhm.
they are the weaker vessel. So men are supposed to be understanding that their wives are the weaker vessel.
Mhm.
And there's going to be times where we are going to, yes, have to do house stuff, and it's not, you're not doing it to hopefully get your wife to open up her legs for you. That should never be closed for you. As according to the Bible, wives are not supposed to deny their husbands are not supposed to deny their wives, so all that good stuff there. But so you're not doing it because you're trying to get some. You're doing it because this is your family. Ultimately, you're responsible for this family. And you know what? As the leader of this family, if things are like kind of off the rocker, or things are kind of going left, it's your job to bring it back in order. It's
Level
your
it back
job.
out.
Yeah, it's not about who's responsible. Who she's supposed to do the housework though, and then I'm supposed to bring the bacon. Well, guess what? You're responsible for the housework and the bacon at the end of the day. So it's like, at the end of the day, if it ain't done, it's on your plate.
Mhm.
Now,
It's on your
you
plate as a whole. Like between the 2 of you, you are a team.
yes, you are a team, but again, there's no two generals. There's always one general. There's always one person that ultimately is going to be held responsible. And
Mhm.
let's just face it, that responsibility falls on the man. And men are not supposed to run from that. They're supposed to embrace that. Okay,
Mhm.
embrace that, because that's part of a relationship. You can't have, you know, the head of the household and be the guy that is known as the head of the household, but not also take the responsibility and the shit that comes with it. You don't get to take the good and leave the bad. You take the good and the bad.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people don't want, that they don't like to hear, is that, yeah, you know what, you may come home and your wife may not have dinner ready. And you know what, you look at her and she looked like she just got hit by a Mack truck. She got throw up on her shirt. Like there's nothing looking sexy about her. Her hair is on a side pony butt tail that's all natted, and like she got
She's
bags
wearing
under
the
her.
same sweatpants for the last 2 days.
She has
I've
more
done that.
bags under her eyes than Paris Hilton has in her car. Like there's like the woman looks like she's a wreck. There's nothing that says I want to get naughty and sexy with you right now.
Right.
On her. Hey, you do what you do. You do what you got to do. Okay, this is my family. This is my wife. She's overwhelmed. Cool. I know I'm exhausted. I know I'm tapped out. But you know what? Let me go ahead and help out where I can. Let me go ahead and take some of this load off her plate, because ultimately it benefits me that my wife is able to recover and is able to,
Yes.
get a break. No, it's not like, oh, she owes me one. It's that I want her not to feel this way, and I'm going to assist and relieve her when I can.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, oh, she has to scratch my back. That's when you start doing this tit for tat thing, and it's
Yeah.
like a quid pro quo, or it's a covert contract. Well, it's like, well, you know what? I had to work all day and I had to come home and I had to make dinner. And then,
She better be
I
giving me
did the
right?
dishes too. That she better be up face down when I get in that bedroom tonight. And I was like, where do you get off thinking all that?
But
Like,
you
of
know
course you
what?
would desire her to do that. You would
If
want her to
you
want
just
that.
if a man, and let me tell you guys, if you just come home and you take the lead and you just come in and within like 30 minutes to an hour, all of her problems have been solved, she's probably gonna be like, "Wow, that was so nice."
But if you come home
The
and you sit
nookie will
on your
come
lazy
in.
boy, grab your beer, and you're watching your
And you're like,
show,
"I need to decompress after work." Nah, like, there is no decompression for a woman at all, and I'm only saying this for especially for a stay-at-home mom. There's no decompression. She doesn't get that. Unfortunately, she
now, I
doesn't.
do think that there is a point, with you may want to have a conversation with her and be like, hey, sweetheart, we got to figure out some time management skills here, or find a schedule that works best for you. Because after a while, the man could be getting taxed too, and it has nothing to do with the sex. It could just be like, I'm exhausted at this point,
Yeah.
and so we got to figure out something here that we could figure out a schedule that works best for you. Do we need to hire
Mhm.
somebody, right?
Yeah.
Do we need to hire somebody to help alleviate some of this the workload on you, since you're managing the two kids? Because I would never advise anybody to have somebody else watch your kids. I would want my wife to watch my kids at home. I wouldn't want to
Mhm.
hire a nanny. But like, hey, do we need to have like a cleaning service? We get like a maid that comes in, cleans up once or twice a week.
Mhm.
Like, you could find ways to assist her.
Right.
I think
Well,
where a lot of
and
times where
even at
guys
that,
fail, I
here's
think where a lot of
another
times where guys
piece.
fail is that they do not give their wives the tools for success, and then feel like they're not pulling their weight.
Mhm. I think also something as simple as a scheduled date night, whether it's weekly or biweekly, I think it's very important that they, especially if you have young kids, you gotta get out. You have to get out because your sanity levels, like, and I was a stay-at-home mom, with my youngest, and that was it got to a point where I was like, thank God I was still finishing up school and most of it I was doing online. So I was still having intellectual stimulation. So I didn't feel like I was just talking to a baby all day and just talking to a toddler all day. But one of the things that we inevitably incorporated was really getting into the date nights or something that we like baby goes to sleep, this is our time. And he would make sure things were done, when by the time baby went to sleep and it was like, all right, everything's taken care of it. I would be tending to the baby, getting him, taken care of, put down and all of those things. I would be doing that. He would be taking care of all of the like the remaining items of the household for the night so that I could focus on the baby. And then when that was done, it was like, now it's just the two of us,
Yeah.
and our other two, like they were older, so we didn't have to worry so much about them. But like making those like quality time can go a long way. Whether you go out or stay in is very important. And I think that like making sure that she feels supported in all of that, whether you're not doing date nights or you are doing date nights or you're just coming home from work and it's a show when you get there, making sure that she feels supported and not that she shouldn't have to give you a list. If you walk in and you say, "What do you need done?" You've already failed.
Well, you haven't
'Cause
looked, you haven't opened your eyes. I mean, all you got to
right,
do is observe, right?
right,
Like, oh,
right,
this is a
right, but
mess. So, how do you
that's
need help? Like,
that's
wait a minute, where do
exactly.
you, why do you have to be pointed in the direction? You know,
Exactly, and I think that that's where a lot of men fail because now you're also putting the mental load on her to where now she has to think about what you need to do when it's like, "Seriously, you can't just take a look?"
but it's also
Like
part of the fact that it says like you're supposed to be a problem solver, right? So you can't look at this problem and see where it needs to be solved.
exactly. But I think the mental
Now I
load
worry about your competency level.
ex there you go. And what have I said about women who cannot trust the competency of a man?
I don't know what you
Maybe
say.
well, so basically, if you're not competent and I can't see that you're competent, or I can see that you're not competent, I can't trust you. Therefore, I can't respect you. Therefore, I can't be with you.
Yeah,
Competen
I think
Competency
that's.
is the that is the relationship breaker 101 right there.
Oh, I think it's like every guy. That's the one thing that you guys got to have like right out the gate is competency. You have
Mhm,
to be competent. You show you're incompetent. Now you give them reason to doubt. You give them reason to dismiss you.
mhm.
You know.
Yeah, because if I'm supposed to be submissive to you, but I can't trust you, how am I gonna be how can I submit to somebody I can't even trust, who's not competent?
Well, I mean, I think if you don't trust your boss, but you still submit to him in certain areas of your life because he's the one that employs you, you can't submit to people. Like, see, people think like, oh, you got to respect the people, you got to like them, they have to be good to you to respect them. No, you don't. No, no. I had a drill instructor that was an asshole to me. He actually
Mhm.
locked me in my closet, put coins in there, and he told me I had to be his jukebox for the next hour, and I had to. Okay, so that guy,
What did
fuck
you
him.
say? What did
I,
you
I don't even
say?
remember. I think I was doing a whole lot of 50 Cent and Eminem. Sorry, mama.
I
um,
never
but
meant
it's
to
like,
hurt you.
yeah, that song brings me, it's triggering. But no, I'm kidding. Like, the whole point is like, I didn't like him, but I sure knew how to respect him. And so I don't think you have to like someone in order to respect them.
You don't have to I didn't
Respect
say
is
anything about
respect.
liking.
No, but
There
I'm
was
just kind of saying it goes
that was
hand in
never a
hand.
word. You have to
No, no,
be
I mean,
confident enough that I can trust
confidence.
you.
Yes, but trust and respect doesn't go hand in hand because you
I
don't
don't
have to
have to like
trust
you to
somebody,
respect you. I don't have to like you
and you
to
don't
think
have
you're
to.
competent, and I don't have to like you to be able to trust you.
Exactly. You don't have to trust them to respect them either. You're
Mhm.
respecting. See, I think respect more is of the position and the title and not so much the person. Like,
Well,
I
I can
don't, I
respect
don't,
a position, but not a
yeah,
person. Yeah,
yes. I
absolutely.
think that's where a lot of people have it, a little confused. Like, well, how can I respect him if he's not competent? Well, it's not so much you're respecting him, you're respecting his position that he holds.
Yeah,
And until this
exactly.
individual no
The
longer
title.
holds that position, then you ought to respect that position. I think there's a difference.
But if you're married, if you're a female married to a man and you cannot trust him because he is not competent, then how can you come to a point of just respecting his role, right? How can you respect his role as a husband and a man because he's not coming up to par of that title, right? So let's
Oh no,
presume
I'm not saying that it's not going to be difficult. See, there's a difference. I would not say that. Oh, it's not. It's like gonna be easy for you to do it. No, I. What we ought to do and what we do are obviously always sometimes two completely different things, right? We ought to do this because this is what would be best overall. But if somebody is not giving us or fostering us the environment for us to easily do those things, it's going to be difficult for us to do it. We're going to be more inclined to not do those things, right? So I think there's the difference of saying what you do and what we ought to do. There's difference there.
But let me put you in the situation. If
Here we go.
you
Scenario.
let's take it back to your drill instructor,
Mm-hmm.
and you respected the position, you trusted the position, but he said something to you, or no, let me put it to you this way. He became incompetent. For instance, you guys failed at your entire group failed at something because he was the one that led you and told you to do it this specific way, and then come to find out you all failed. Right? He gave you guidance, he taught you, he made sure for you to learn one specific way and to be a specific way, and then at the end of the day you all failed the test.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whether it's a PFT, whether it's like your MOS tests or something, something along those lines. And you completely failed, and they were the ones that told you to do it this way in order to pass.
Yeah.
So your drill instructor just leads you completely wrong. Do you think that the next time he tells you to do something a certain way and says, "Trust me, we're going to be okay. This is how you need to do it. This is what you need to do for this next upcoming test or activity or task," are you going to feel like he's competent? Can you respect his decisions, and can you trust him if
Well,
that's what he said?
I think it depends on how he address the failure.
True. Okay,
I
let's
think that's
pretend.
ultimately where it depends on. Now, if he blamed the failure on everybody else, on all of us and all the people underneath him, and he didn't take the accountability and like, okay, I led us in this direction, I failed, like, my leadership, whether it's his fault or not, this is the difference between blame and responsibility.
Yeah,
Again, men, we are not always to blame, but we are always in position to be responsible, to act.
and
It
accountable.
may not be, and be accountable. It may not be our fault, but we have the responsibility to act. And we have to be accountable for our lack of inaction or the action that we take.
Yeah.
So I think that's the difference, right? So if the
Yeah.
drill instructor, or my lieutenant or whoever, led us down the wrong way, and there was a show, and we didn't meet our projected goal. How he handles that failure and how he addresses that failure would really, determine whether or not I think he's going to be competent enough, or where I'm going to question him or not in the next time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all of this comes back to accountability.
So if he just
women
negates it, and says it wasn't my fault, like you guys failed on your own demise, whatever, how are you going to feel the next time?
Yeah, I'm going to be like, okay, so this guy is not a really good leader here.
Right.
I'm gonna question. I'm gonna have a struggle bus in following that order. But again, I'm not following the man. I'm following the order from the position. Now, I may not like it, but according to the military code of justice, if I want to avoid an Article 15 or a court martial of some sort, I'm going to obey some orders, right? I may be hesitant, but I think there's a difference, right? The issue, what it comes down to, and it all points out to this, it all comes back to lack of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
That's all what this feminism red pill stuff is lack of accountability when it comes to relationships. I'm not talking about pre-relationships or the dating market. I'm talking about when it comes to relationships, is that the reason why relationships fail is because It took two parties to fail it. Two parties dropped the ball. You know, you may say, well, wait a minute, I didn't cheat, he cheated. You're right. But did you play a role in facilitating an environment where cheating seemed to be the best option?
I
Or was
disagree.
it?
I disagree.
I don't think that everybody plays as significant as a role, but I think that everybody plays a role.
I disagree.
Like,
And here's why.
okay,
Again, what's the thing that I tell my children the most is you cannot control other people, but you can control what you do and what you say. That's the only thing you can control. You can control how you choose to react, how you choose to respond, how you choose to feel about something. So, for instance, even though I was cheated on multiple occasions with my husband, which is now my ex-husband for obvious reasons, I chose not to retaliate. I chose not to go out and do things. I chose to still be the wife. I still chose loyalty. I still chose my values and principles because that's who I am and that's what I stand for. I'm not going to lower myself because somebody else lowered themselves. Or
so
let's pretend he wasn't getting nookie for 2 weeks because I don't know, the of having a family and kids and all these things was a show. Well, he chose otherwise. Or maybe I had a bad attitude because, I was in an emotional downfall for a couple weeks or something because things were going on and things, shoulders were getting heavy. And he chose to go that route instead, right? Like he is choosing to do something wrong that he knows is wrong. Or if I chose to do that, oh, my husband's not home or whatever the case may be, and I chose to go out and do something to mitigate that on my own outside of my marriage, I would be wrong for that. We choose our own paths at the end of the day. We cannot
what I
control others, but
you're
we
right. You
can
can't
control
control
what we.
others, but like here's where I would say the mistake is. This behavior probably was present to some degree. There was some warning or some red flag that you may have overlooked prior to that said like this guy is selfish enough and he's selfish, and selfish people tend to just do what they want and they don't care about how it hurts others. So do you see what I'm saying? There may have been things that when you look back on, because I do the same thing when I look back at my ex-wife and when she had her affairs, I'm like, there was definitely things that I noticed in the relationship when we were dating that could point to this type of behavior. It would be possible here, like she was prone to something like this, or that the odds of her cheating was you know significantly more than other people because of her personality type or
Mhm,
her character, right? um
mhm.
but if we choose to ignore that, that's on us. Like we chose to ignore these things that did
Yeah,
play a role. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's equal. I never think that it's all 50-50 equal, fault, but we all play a role. We do play a role, whether it's the choice that we make to start the relationship or to stay in the relationship, or it's something that leads up to later on. Like for guys, I think that we do play a role in the destruction of our relationship when we are constantly pedestalizing women. When you
yeah,
pedestalize your wives, that is you may think good intentions, you may have the best intentions there in doing so, but in doing that, that ultimately may lead you to end up being minimized by this woman that you are trying to prove your value to or show that you love her by pedestalizing her. But in doing so, she loses interest and she loses respect for you, and she decides that she wants to go get with Chad from accounting.